This presentation is about improving reading comprehension through context clues. The presentation will walk you through strategies for improving your reading comprehension and building a better vocabulary, and it will also offer some examples to help you practice these strategies. Let's get started. As you know from earlier this semester, you can improve your reading comprehension in several ways. Those ways include using pre-reading strategies, using active reading strategies, and using post-reading strategies. As you know, active reading involves a lot of different things like annotating, asking yourself questions along the way, and paraphrasing what you've learned. But what we need to spend more time discussing is how to develop stronger vocabulary by trying to understand the terms, the phrases, and the words that are used in your school reading assignments. There are plenty of ways that you can define words, better understand unfamiliar words. Of course, you can use a dictionary. We can use a good old printed one or an online dictionary. We can also use context and example clues, synonym clues, and antonym clues. These four things will be the focus of this presentation today. I prefer using an online dictionary, and I like it for many reasons. For example, where you see this red arrow, you can type in the word that you'd like to know, and it'll bring you to the entry in the dictionary. Where you see the yellow arrow, you can actually click a speaker and it will pronounce those words for you. It's always nice to hear someone pronounce it, especially if it's a trickier word. Along with the online dictionary, you can find synonyms and antonyms, and these types of words can help increase your understanding of a word. Synonyms are words that are similar in meaning, and antonyms are words that are opposite in meaning. Once you've looked up a word, a great way to remember how to use it is to put it in one of your own sentences. What I'd like for us to do is to take a few minutes to pause this video or during our lesson to look up the word amicable. Why don't you use an online dictionary or maybe a dictionary app that you have on your phone? Look up the word. You can look at the definition. You can look at synonyms and antonyms to help you figure out its meaning. And then I want you to put it in a sentence you create. And once you've had time to do that, we'll share them as a class so you can see how creative your classmates get. And by doing that, you're much more likely to remember the meaning and to maybe even use this word in future sentences, future papers, future conversations that you have. Now let's talk about how to use context and example clues to figure out the meaning of a word. Using context clues means using the general sense of a paragraph or clues around an unfamiliar word to figure out its meaning. I recommend that students read an entire sentence and the sentence before and after it a couple of times to get that general sense and to help you figure out the meaning of an unfamiliar word. Once you have that general sense of its meaning, of the paragraph's tone, perhaps, you can make an inference about the meaning of the word. Another way to think about that is sort of like an educated guess about what a word might mean. Let's look at some examples. How about this word, predicament? What does it mean? Looking at it all on its own on the screen doesn't really help you figure it out. But when it's placed in a paragraph or a sentence, we can use the context and the examples around it to determine the meaning. Here's our first example. The players on the losing team stared ahead in disbelief. A few had tears welling up in their eyes. Ignoring the shouts and commotion around them, they sat in shock. The obvious pain of their predicament showed on their faces. They all looked small, beaten, and pathetic. What does the writer mean by predicament? If you'd like to pause the video at this point, please do if you want to read the paragraph again. I'm going to move to the next slide though. There's some clues in here that help us understand what predicament means. In the first sentence, we know that there's a losing team. And if you keep reading, we know that they are in shock about this thing that has happened, and they're experiencing some pain. So we know that this must not be a good thing that they're feeling. That gives us some clues about what predicament means. You may have guessed that predicament means a difficult situation. They're losing, they're not feeling great about it. It's not a situation they want to be in. Let's move on to another example. What about halcyon? Do you know what this word means all on its own? Probably not. Let's look at it in the context of a paragraph and figure out what it means. As the ship sailed west, the sailors watched the sea's gentle waves and listened to the seagulls in the clear skies, calling to each other. The halcyon weather was about to end, however. To the east, dark clouds approached, heading right towards them. What does the writer mean by this word, halcyon? Feel free to pause the video at this point if you'd like to read the paragraph again and to use the context clues around it to figure out what it means. I'm going to move on to the next slide, though. Here are the clues that I discovered. I know that this word halcyon is describing the word weather. So what clues are in this paragraph about the weather? Well, the waves are gentle and the skies are clear. But we also know that this particular type of weather is about to end. And what we see are some dark clouds moving in. Okay, using these clues, what's the meaning of this word? If you guessed that halcyon means calm or peaceful, you're correct. The halcyon weather is calm or peaceful. Good work. Now let's move on from talking about context clues and examples to synonym clues specifically. Synonyms are words that have similar or the same meaning. So looking for words in a sentence that have the same or the similar meaning to an unfamiliar word can help you understand it. So some synonyms are laugh and giggle, confusing and puzzling, destroyed and ruined. Replacing a word with a synonym won't change the meaning of the sentence at all or very much. So you can look at this example. The baby laughed at the funny faces his mother made, and the baby giggled at the funny faces his mother made. We still get the same meaning because both words are very similar. They're synonyms, so we could use either one in our sentence. Now let's look at a few more examples. Owls are superb predators. They have many amazing traits like sharp hearing that make them excellent hunters. What does the word superb mean? Let's look for clues in this sentence. We know that superb is describing the word predators, and you probably know that predator is the same as a hunter. So if we look at the second sentence, we know that excellent is describing the word hunters. So what can we infer about this, about the meaning of superb? Well, superb actually means excellence. So if you go to the online dictionary, you put in the word, you search it, you'll see that superb and excellent are synonyms. Let's look at another example. A walk through any airport in the world reveals a common, widespread item travelers consider essential, the rolling suitcase. These rolling cases come in various shapes and sizes. The travel accessory is now ubiquitous. No one is carrying bags anymore. What do you think the word ubiquitous means? Let's look for clues in the sentences around it. Right away, we see these words common and widespread being used to describe the items that the travelers consider essential. Towards the end of this paragraph, we see a travel accessory used, just like the item. And these travel accessories are being described as ubiquitous. We can infer that common and widespread means the same thing as ubiquitous, that everyone has these bags now. If you go to the online dictionary, you'll see
that ubiquitous actually means widespread. So good job using those synonym clues to figure out this new word. Finally, we move to antonym clues. This is when you're looking for words in the sentence that suggest the opposite of the unfamiliar word. So some antonyms here are happiness and sadness, guilty and unashamed, fascinated and bored. These words mean the opposite of each other. Here's an example. Lindsay and Lisa are identical twins, but their attitudes toward money are very different. Lindsay is quite frivolous, while Lisa saves every penny she earns. What do you think the word frivolous means? Let's look for clues in the sentence. Well, we know that Lindsay and Lisa are being compared because we're told that they're very different. We're also told that Lisa saves every single penny, so she's a saver, and Lindsay's the opposite. So what could frivolous mean? It must mean the opposite of saving. Let's use the antonym clue. Do we think it means spendthrift, cheap, or frugal? Even if you don't know what spendthrift means, you probably know that the fact that Lisa saves a lot, some consider her cheap or very frugal. That leaves us with spendthrift as the antonym to frivolous. So you're right if you guess spendthrift as the antonym clue. Both frivolous and spendthrift mean wasteful. So Lindsay's quite wasteful while Lisa likes to save and she's pretty frugal. Here's a second example. As a teenager, Jimmy's friends described him as laid back and easygoing. Now that he is in his mid-50s, he is much more persnickety about his routine and less willing to go with the flow. What do you think this word persnickety means? Let's look for some clues in the sentences. Well, we know that Jimmy's being compared from his teenage years to his mid-50s. And as a teenager, he was really laid back, he was easygoing, probably nothing much bothered him. But now that he's in his 50s, he's persnickety and he's less willing to go with the flow. So persnickety is likely the opposite of laid back and easygoing. So which word do you think persnickety means? Is he flexible now that he's in his 50s? Is he carefree? Or is he fussy? If you guess fussy, you're right, and you use the antonym clues in the sentence to help you figure that out. Good work.
You know that the best way to remember information is to reflect on what you've learned and then to put it into practice. I'd like for you to take a few minutes to summarize what you feel you've learned from this presentation. And I also want you to jot down where you think this information could be helpful. So what classes can you use this in? Where can you apply this information about context clues and improving reading comprehension? Then I'd like for you to really put this information into practice by completing your next homework assignment. Your next homework assignment will have you practice the strategies we've just learned and reviewed, and it will help you start to build that stronger vocabulary to improve your overall reading comprehension and writing knowledge.